How's it going, everybody? This is the Figuring Out Finance podcast, episode number 22, continuing on with the Rich Dad Poor Dad series, chapter 8. My name is Chris Rickenball, and I'll be your host today. And before I get into the episode here, follow me on all the socials, so Instagram, TikTok, and then go to my website, figuringoutfinance.com, and sign up for the weekly newsletter to stay up to date on everything I'm doing, as well as figuring out finance. And go take the survey so I can answer all your money questions. So, jumping into the chapter here, chapter 8 from Rich Dad Poor Dad. So getting started, Robert breaks down some tips on overcoming some setbacks and rules to follow while getting started investing. Now, I didn't follow all of these rules while I was going through the first 2 years out of college, but now I look back and read this book and think, man, if I just followed what he was saying, I would be in such a better position. So what he does is he has 10 different rules in the chapter, but I'm just going to be able to break down 3 or 4 here for you and leave the rest for you to be able to go and read. So the number one reason is to find a reason greater than reality. So the power of spirit. So a reason or purpose is a combination of wants and don't wants. So when you're going through your own personal journey here, whether that's investing, that's working, getting married, you need to be able to figure out what you do want in your life and what you don't want in your life. And a lot of other things are going to be able to get really, really clear because you're going to be able to find what you're looking for in life. Because say you want to travel the world and you don't want to work. So how are you going to be able to do both? Because obviously not working, how are you going to be able to make money? So are your assets working for you? And that's what is very, very clear through this. So figure out what you want in life, travel, family, and then you got to figure out what you don't want. So do you not want a 9-to-5 job taking up all your time, taking away from your family, having to work weekends, having to work more? So that's all the things you have to be able to write down and then really be able to think through yourself. Because these are your deep-seated emotional reasons for wanting to invest. So once you get clear on what you want and what you don't want, your avenue for investing and the routes you want to take for investing are going to become very, very clear and apparent to you. So that's number one, and that's where it all starts. So I recommend writing down your list of wants and don't wants. Something that you can do is write to yourself in 10 years and then what that person's advice is telling you to do, because you're the best person to be able to give advice for the person you were yesterday. So for me, what would 24-year-old Chris be telling 22-year-old Chris? So I would be reading a ton of personal finance books as well as personal development books, because I think when you're able to see different types of leadership. So in the first company I worked for, I was able to notice all of these different little things because I read Extreme Ownership. I read a ton of books. I was excited to be able to lead a team and didn't get the opportunity. However, I was able to see what bad leadership looked like. And when your bosses are saying everything in the first few word for word what's in this book, it becomes very, very apparent that there's some type of leadership mindset shift that needs to happen here. So, number one, find a reason greater than reality and find the reason or purpose with your wants and don't wants. So, number 3 on the list was choose your friends carefully, and you can't get around this at all. So, Robert says, I would say one of the hardest things about wealth building is to be true to yourself and to be willing to not go along with the crowd. So where are you going with the crowd in your life? Whether that's money, whether that's going out with your health and fitness, are you going to the gym? And if you are going to the gym, are you just doing what everybody else does? Or what's your goals to be able to get more fit? Are you trying to have a six-pack? Are you just trying to go and sweat and be active? There's so many different things that you could be doing in the gym, but where are you going along with the crowd? Maybe you need to do different lifts than your friends. But tying this back into money here, being able to go out almost every night, have the expensive apartment, have the car payment, you need to be able to understand that you don't have to go along with the crowd to where you're having all those high payments just trying to play keeping up with the Joneses, because it's putting you in debt and it's putting you farther behind and you're not working towards your goals. So are your friends talking about making money or just spending it? So that builds on what I was just kind of talking about. What are your friends doing? So are they going to the gym? Are they going out to bars? Do they want to sleep all day? You need to be able to get around the people that are doing what you want to do. So if you look around at your 5 closest friends, because you are the result of the 5 people you spend the most of your time with, you need to be able to readjust that. So whether that's if you want to get into real estate investing and none of your friends, or they're just out of college and partying still and wanting to be around college, that's probably not your group that you're going to be able to grow with. So start going to real estate meetups, join Bigger Pockets. There's so many different people out there that are doing the things you want to do. Maybe they're not quite your age, but you're going to find somebody that is your age that you vibe with. And that's what I really started finding when I went to real estate meetups and started talking about money. I started hanging out with 40-year-old people, almost 20 years older than me, but we were on the same mindset level. So, don't be afraid to get out there and, put your friends or your current friends in the back seat to be able to level up in life. So, and another one of Robert's kind of quotes here is, if 2 people are arguing against each other with 2 different opinions, if you're smart and you listen to both, you should keep your mind open, because they both have valid points. I apologize for that short break, as one of the pest control guys was trying to get me to buy some pest control. So I actually did work for pardoning the story there, I worked for a sales, kind of like a marketing team for AT&T for 2 years. So I was one of those people going door to door and doing what he's doing. And what they teach you is really interesting, because it's just, you have to close the door on them or not open it to be able to get them to go away, or they're just going to keep asking you questions. And that's what they teach you. So really interesting there, but super annoying. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Anyway, so going back to the quote here, if 2 people are arguing against each other with 2 different opinions, if you're smart, Robert says, you listen to both. Keep your mind open, because both probably have valid points. And he talks about a coin in another book, or the same book. I haven't gotten to that chapter, but I know it's in there somewhere. So if you look at a coin, there's 2 sides. So that could be the positive or the negative, or just 2 different opinions. Where you want to be is in the middle, because there's 3 sides to a coin: the heads, tails, and then the edge. So you want to be on the edge to be able to see the good and the bad of the situation. Because like in Robert's earlier story, to where he was talking about his friend having all the research done on oil prices, he's able to look at that and, either be scared or go invest in oil and make a ton of money. So, listen to both, keep your mind open, and you're going to be able to go a lot farther in life, rather than just taking somebody's opinion who may or may not know what they're talking about. So, moving on here, the 8th lesson is use your assets to buy luxuries, the power of focus. So this is a story about Robert's friend giving his son $3,000 to use and to invest to buy his own car, because his friend's son wanted to have his parents buy his own car because all of his friends were doing the same. So Robert's friend gave his son $3,000 and said, "Hey, go use this, go learn to invest and to buy your own car. So his son ended up losing most of it in stocks, but what he did, he started learning by reading books and talking to people smarter and brokers and playing cash flow, and now he has a respect for money because he was able to learn. So his son learned a lot more by doing that in the classroom, and that's something that everybody really needs to learn, because what you're doing by being active, talking to people smarter, and actually taking action with the reading, with the talking to people, you're going to learn so much, because you're going to be able to learn, the good and the bad side, and you're going to be able to have so much more knowledge going into real life. So I want to highlight a quote on here on page 302 from Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it goes like this. So if we give 100 people $10,000 at the start of the year, I believe that at the end of the year, 80 would have nothing left. In fact, many would have created greater debt by making a down payment on a new car, refrigerator, electronics, or a holiday. 16 would have increased that 10,000 by 5 to 10%, and 4 would have increased it to 20,000 or into millions. So that 100 people, only 80% of them would have nothing left. So that's the majority. 16 would have found a way to increase it by 5 to 10%. So that's good. They went and invested it in a mutual fund or in stocks, something slow growing. And then the entrepreneurs, only 4% out of the 100 was his guess, would have increased it to 20,000 or into the millions. So, if you have to look at a certain point of your life, if you can break down that quote yourself, which group are you in? Because that's going to be very eye-opening. I feel like we all would want to say that we're going to be into that 20,000 to a million range, but in reality, that's not true. Because a lot of people are going to say, oh my gosh, $10,000, what can I go buy? Some people are going to say, oh, okay, I can save it, and what can I invest? They're going to put it in their high-yield savings account or mutual funds or a stock that's going to be slow growing. Then they're going to be back to doing their own thing. They're not going to be using that money for anything other than just putting it in there and being told what to do. So that 4% that Robert's talking about is going to go turn that into 20,000 or a million. So what group are you in? I'd like to say that I'm in that 4%, because what I'm doing right now is I just was able to pull out some, let's just say 10,000 just to round it out, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but around 10,000. So what am I doing right now? So I just got under contract as of recording this episode. So I think it'll come out a little bit later, a couple weeks, like 1 or 2 weeks later. But as of today, I have a house under contract to flip that's going to end up costing me probably $3,000 out of my own pocket, and trying to keep all the rest of that in my pocket. So only spending $3,000 out of that $10,000, and then I'm able to go use somebody else's money that they're willing to invest at a percentage on what they give, say 15 to 20%, which is really high, I've been told, but I want to get a deal done. So I'm able to leverage that money, take that 10%, and what I'm going to make out of this deal is no less than 10 to 15,000, probably higher than that after everything's done. I believe I ran the numbers and it was going to be about 25 to 30. So I would like to say I'm in that 4%. So being able to really sit down and think, how would I turn this 10,000 that somebody gave me into 20 or more? So if you're creative and thinking, all right, how do I invest this aggressively? Or am I going to save it? Or am I just going to go spend it? So which group are you in? So the last one here was lesson 9 is choose heroes, the power of myth. So the main point of this one is, who are you looking up to in life? So a lot of people my age, I would say, maybe not the ones listening to this podcast, but they're so influenced by music, which is awesome. But what's in that music you're listening to? Is it drugs and sex and all that fun stuff? Or is it going to be listening to a podcast to where you're learning about business, about real estate, how to invest, how to grow your mindset. There's so many different things you could be listening to, but who are those people you're looking up to? For me, I'm listening to the Better Life podcast, which is hands down my favorite podcast. So what I like about that is they're bringing people, or Brandon Turner is bringing people on this podcast with great relationships. Some of them come from nothing to millionaire status. They have great stories to where, like I just said, where from rock bottom to making millions and then helping people. And the interesting thing is that they all have really great marriages. They're very open to a lot of things, and just the relationships that they have is something that I look up to. I want to learn what it takes to be in that good relationship and to be in that room. If I'm not around people in the area around me, I need to be listening to those people and taking notes on what they're doing, because that's how you're going to learn and, get better in life. So all that to say, in the book, Robert talks about looking up to Donald Trump and Warren Buffett. And what he means by telling that is, when it comes to investing, too many people make it sound hard. So instead, you have to find the heroes who make that average day, or to make something look really, really easy. So Donald Trump and Warren Buffett make investing look really, really easy. So who are you looking up to? Are you looking up to the random guy that told you real estate and investing is a scam and it's hard and it's going to be so tough to do it? Or are you going to look at the people doing it every single day and in that business that are making thousands and millions off of it? I'm going to look up to the people making millions, because they're going to be able to tell me how to do it a lot easier. They're going to be able to tell me their lessons that they had to learn. It's like, why do I need to go learn that lesson for myself when somebody just told me how to not get around and cheat it, but just be able to understand that problem and understand when it's coming up and what to do. So who are you looking up to in your life? Because if you're struggling to understand something, you need to find somebody who can explain it in those simple terms and not just use a lot of fancy jargon to make it sound more difficult or to make that person feel good and make them look good in their head. So, that's really, really tough to find. It's interesting going to some of the real estate meetups, because there are a lot of people using that jargon, and it's so hard to kind of fight through, because you're thinking, who do I trust? Am I just talking to this wholesaler who wants to sell me a deal, or am I really talking to an agent who knows their stuff, who invests themselves and isn't just trying to be the loudest person in the room? So really having to go through that and just be able to look up to the right people and get connected to the right people. So all of that to say, if you want to check out the other 6 rules, go check out the book and keep listening for the final chapter next week, next Friday, in the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. It's been really interesting going back through this book, and I'm excited to get into this last chapter, as well as trying to get back into reading one book a week, because I got away from that for a while. And now, I've just really tried to center myself back into really trying to learn more and read a lot of books rather than the ones I've just read. And then being able to take a book by the chapter or so many pages, be able to break it down on the podcast. So keep looking out for those. I'm open to any book recommendations if you're still listening at this point. So I appreciate you guys listening. Keep giving me recommendations. Keep listening to the podcast. Check me out on all the socials, where you can find me at Figuring It Out Finance on TikTok and Instagram. And you can check out the figuringoutfinance.com, and keep listening to the podcast. So all that to say, this is Chris Rickenbaugh signing off for the 22nd episode in the Figuring Out Finance podcast. We'll see you next time.